Hey everybody, welcome back to Anna Does Design. Today we are going to be building a table component. Now, when we're building this component, we're going to build it with a lot of flexibility baked into it. So down the line, if you need to make changes, you can do that with no problem. First thing to note, I have my keystrokes turned on so you can see everything and anything I'm doing at the bottom of the screen to make this easier for you to follow along. Second thing to note is I already have a little design system baked into this. I've built this a while ago, but this will just make me move quicker for you guys. Let's jump in. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to build with cells first. So you could take this back to atomic design if you would like. Building with cells first allows us to bake in that flexibility. So I'm going to show you what I mean. We're going to build header cell, body cell, end cell. Okay. So let's say we have a header cell. In your header cell, let's zoom in. We're going to see header text. Duplicate this, header subtext, right? Shift A, header cell. Now in here, we're going to make this cell have some padding into it. And we're going to also make, let's say 4 on the bottom as well. And then let's hug this. I'm going to use my text colors. I'm going to use gray 900 for the subheader. And I'm going to use 950 for my header. Now we're going to make this a component. So we're going to do Option Command K. Right? Again, that's at the bottom of the screen. I'm not going to call these things out moving forward because you can see it. We have our header cell. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a variant of this header cell. Now, I do this because I've seen this multiple times where in your header cell, you might not just have header text and subtext. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this medium. I'm going to use enter. So I have my header cell, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variant. The reason we create a variant here at this level is because it bakes that flexibility in. So if I don't want header text and subtext, say in my table, I have a pill as that first header object or that header item, which I've seen before. You want to bake this in now. So I'm going to Command C this pill that I've used for my little design system. I'm going to grab this header text, right? And I am going to Command Shift R, which is going to replace that. I'm going to get rid of this header text. Now this is set to hug. What I would like to do is I know I added that padding, but in order to ensure that this is all the same height, I'm just going to set a height of 40 pixels. Now you can lay this out however you want. I put auto layout on this. It makes it cleaner and easier to use, but you do have to do some backtracking. So I'm going to make it horizontal layout. I'm going to pull this out. And I'm going to make sure both of these are set to hug. The next thing you can do here and make your life really easy is you can Option Shift. Again, I said I wouldn't say this out loud. So you can drag this down by copying it and you can name this body cell, right? So for a body cell, you also might have a pill. You could have some subtext. You're not going to see that header text there. And you're going to name this body text, right? And then you have this option where you have your pill or your body text. Now you could do this two separate ways. You can keep this separately, or you can bake your pill into this body text because we've seen that as well. Set this to a horizontal layout. I'm going to set the text to hug. Again, set this to hug. This seems like a lot of work, but I swear it's not. I'm also going to make a gap here of 8 pixels. Perfect. The last thing I'm going to do is that end cell. Again, drag this down. Now, one thing I like to do with my end cell is I like to align it to the right. I find end cells are usually aligned to the right. I'm going to delete that pill for now. Again, the option is here to be able to add a different variant when you need it. So let's insert this instance. I'm going to Command Shift C, Command Shift R. We're going to delete the text. And then I'm going to change this icon to, let's make it a caret or a chevron, whatever you call them. Or an arrow. Let's make it this one. And I'm going to make this 16 by 16. Perfect. This is also aligned, right? Everything else is aligned to the left. We're going to clean these things up a little bit. We're going to start creating booleans and text variants. Let's do that. I'm going to create a text variant. Text, header text. And I'll speed this up. subtext. And then this one's also going to have I'm going to want to turn this off. So I'm going to create a boolean, show header subtext, true. Right now it's on. Same thing here. Body. And then I'm going to create a boolean here where we have show body text. Create. Perfect. And the last thing here for this end cell, you might have multiple icons here. I've seen this happen many a time. So let's add 2 more icons and then we can turn them off by default. So let's add male, set it to light, and set this to light. Last one is going to be a flag. I've seen that happen before as well. So these 2 icons, I'm going to name this icon left. I'm going to name this icon middle. Also to note, I should turn these off by default or hide them by default. Command-Shift-H. Now, last but not least, let's name these properties and variants. Our property is called type. This is going to be called text pill. And by doing this before I duplicate, I could have made my life a lot easier, but now you know. Type text last one, type icons. I've also seen one more type of this one, so I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to Command-Shift-R, put that body text in there. I'm going to get rid of those other icons, and I'm going to put an underline on this just so we can show the difference. And this will be called link. I have seen links in the end text as well, so we're just going to name this link. Okay, now that we have our cells, we're going to make columns, and I do this by columns so I can make the width work with me instead of against me. I'll show you what I mean. So we have this header text. We're going to duplicate it, right? Shift-A, put it in a frame, header. One thing we're also going to do is we're going to add another cell above it, and we're going to Command-Option-B. We're going to break this because we don't want it to be a component. We just want it to be the actual header of the row of the column. Make that hug. I'm going to make this before I start duplicating. I'm going to put a stroke here, and let's make that gray 100, and I just want it on the bottom as like it breaks it up. I'm just going to duplicate a bunch of these. There's much easier ways to do this. I'm just showing you what I do. So we have our header, perfect. And then see those lines work with us instead of against us because we're doing this in a vertical way instead of horizontal. So we have our header column, and then we're going to Command-Option-K, right? The next thing we're going to do is add a variant, and this is going to be our body. And what we're going to do is I'm going to grab all of these and make this, the body cell. We're going to show the pill off. And then last one is for the end column. I actually don't put any text in there. That is a choice because these are usually actions and you might have multiple actions in here. So it might be a little hard to decide what you want that text to be. So I'm going to change this body cell to that end cell. See how it aligns, right? Perfect. We have our table. No, we don't. I'm kidding. So now all we do is we take these, we drag them out. Command Shift A, table. Then we do the final touches on here. You want to put a stroke on the table. Let's do border 100 or gray 100. I put a 12 border radius on this. We're going to clip it. Perfect. I am going to go ahead and make these have more padding than 4, at least on the headers. I'm going to make them 8. Perfect. And this 8 as well. Perfect. So it doesn't feel so on top of this edge. And then I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Let's make this 28. Perfect. We're getting somewhere. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so we have our table. We're going to change this. We're going to change our properties, name the properties, type. This will be header, body. So we're going to swap these out for body, and we're going to swap this out for end. And you can have as many bodies as you want. So let's say this body has the pill. And then last but not least, Command Option K. So now we have a table, and you can adjust these columns based on the content that you have inside of them. And I think that's super important to be able to make those as flexible as possible. For me, I make the end cells very small. That's just a me opinion. Now I can actually start by making those changes to the design. Great. So I took a beat and I paused this and I just rearranged things for me. So we have our cells, our columns, and our table. There's 2 ways to go about this. You can make your table a slot. So I've seen a lot of people use the slot method for different things like modals and cards, but I actually use the slot method for tables. Or you can make it so your table has like maybe up to 7 body cells that you can just turn on or off. It's completely up to you. But the reason that I like to do the slot method is, let's say I make another table, and let's say I name this slot/generic table. Let's say I make this one with 4. Let's say I make this table with 2 body cells. The reason that I like to do this in a slot format, so this is now an instance, I can Command Option B and make this just a generic frame. I want to be able to change the widths of the header or body. That is completely up to me as a person, and the easiest way to do this is by making this an actual slot. So let's say I have this slot generic table. Great. I'm going to name this slot long header table. Cool. Awesome. We have these 2 slots. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take an instance of that table. I'm going to put a header on it. Table header. I am going to put a subtext of that. I'm going to change these both to gray. 950. I'm going to make this 900. Whatever your styling choices are, it's completely up to you. I am going to add in some filters or drop downs, and maybe 2 drop downs, and then a input field, searching, turning all this extra stuff off. Cool. We have search and we have filter. I'm going to throw these in a div, Shift A, filters, make them 8. And then I'm going to put these all together. I'm going to make this, it's set to auto, perfect. So no matter how big I make this, the filters will always stay right. The search will always stay left. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these headers in here. And I'm going to add a button just so we have it. You always want a button option. I'm going to put this as header. Great. I'm going to set these to fill, even though it's not necessary. And this should be set to auto, this entire frame. Perfect. So now I have my headers, my filter, and then I want it with my table. table with headers and filter. That's what I name this. Great. Now I can adjust the sizing. I want to do 8 and then I want to do 16 here. Again, these are totally up to you and your stylistic choices. Now I'm going to make this table a component. Cool. Now what? Great. So we have these slots that I can swap. So I can create an instance, table, swap, slot, create property. Great. I can use an instance. I want to change this to this slot generic table. And that's how easy it is. Once I change that slot, the table should then keep the same properties as this table. I'm just changing that slot. So every time you want to make a new slot, you should duplicate the previous slot so it holds those properties before. And you can make changes. We talked about making all these their own types. So I can make this a pill. I can turn the pill off. I can Command-Shift-B this. I'm going to make another body. I'm going to make this have 3 options to it. Right? I can Command-K this, and this is icons, table. I add that to my swap. And then here, I might want to change this one to fill. Perfect. So now we have a bunch of different options for tables. And again, the best part about it at doing it at the cell level is these cells can be added or deleted. So you can make multiple cells within the header cell depending on what you need as your team grows and scales. But building it like this gives you that flexibility from the jump. So that's it for tables today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, reach out. If you want to build together, reach out. Have an awesome day.